Hey guys, so I'm super excited to hear the Croatia plans are coming together. I've got the map pulled up here, and I think what I want to do first is just sort of talk you through the spectrum of things that you can see and do out here, and just pitch a bunch of stuff. And then as we go on, you can kind of narrow it down and decide what sounds like the most fun. This might be a little all over the place. I've been just sitting here thinking about this for like the last 20 or 30 minutes on what to tell you and what might be helpful, but I'm just kind of going off the top of my head here. So just take this in for what it's worth, and then we can kind of fine tune and figure out like, I think the most valuable planning is going to be like the day by day and how, if you have 14 days, like the best way to spend them and work out all the logistics. But I'll just kind of go through it, and I'll let you know what I would like to go see and do, or like what I think you guys might like, and what ends up being fun or what ends up being really touristy, and the things you should skip. So yeah, we'll just zoom out a little bit, and you can see Croatia here, bordering Slovenia to the north, and Hungary, Serbia, Bosnia, and Montenegro. So those are kind of like the neighbors. I think I'll go into it, but I think you should definitely consider getting into Bosnia and Herzegovina for at least a day to go see Mostar. And then Montenegro is just south, and you can pop down here to see the Bay of Kotor, which is absolutely incredible. But that'll just sort of orient you a little bit. This area up here is called Istria, and it used to be part of Italy, and so it still like feels a lot like Italy. There's like wine and truffles, and it's not quite as exciting as down in the south, if you ask me. But yeah, so people talk about Istria, people talk about Slavonia, which is like this flat plain area, sort of like their breadbasket. There's not a lot going on here, and then you get to kind of the central coast between Rijeka and Zadar. This is called the Varner Gulf up here, and you have some islands, but yeah, again, I've been to most of these, and there's a few cool spots, but I really wouldn't worry too much about it. It's good to know where Pog is. On all the menus, you'll see cheese from the island of Pog, and it's like a really salty sheep cheese that's on this island. This island's like totally barren; it's just rock, and anyways, the Pog cheese is kind of a famous thing you'll probably try while you're there. And yeah, these little islands, not much going on. So I think you're wise just to kind of focus on the area between Split and Dubrovnik, and then if you want to venture south and leave Croatia into Kotor. So this stretch is called the Dalmatian coast, and that's what we're gonna kind of focus on. So the first thing is you obviously like come in through Split. It's the big major airport in this part of Croatia, and make sure you have your rental car set up so that you have the option to return it in Dubrovnik, or I mean, just confirm that you will be returning it in Dubrovnik. It's definitely the best thing to do to maximize your time. If it ends up, I don't know what the price will be on that. If it's like crazy expensive, you could drive back up to Split and fly out of Split. Also, depending on how your flights work out, if Split's got a lot more direct flights. So definitely put that into the mix. This is a really fun road trip, but it takes like maybe 6 hours. Let's see. Sorry, hold on. It's a long one. It would basically take the better part of like a day to drive back up there. Sorry. This isn't really super important, but just to know. Um, ah, okay. There's always traffic on this road too, so it adds a bit of time. And well, that's a good piece of information to know. 3 hours, 3 to 5 hours, I'd say, to get all the way back up. Um, So yeah, you can just keep that in mind if you're working out your logistics, taking into account flight and what they're going to charge you to do a one-way rental to Dubrovnik. Okay, anyways, sorry, that was a bit of a detour. But you'll come in through Split. You'll pick up your rental car here. If you do decide to go into Bosnia or Montenegro, make sure that the rental agency knows you'll be crossing borders. I think it's just like a liability insurance thing, but you definitely want to ask that question. Hey, can I cross into other countries? And if you're interested in doing that, make sure that's all set up. So the airport's over here, the Split Airport. So it's a bit outside of town. So you'll get your car and drive into town. And Split is really cool. This is where it kind of got started. Well, everything here got started by the Greeks, but then when the Romans were in charge, this is where the emperors would come to retire. So this guy Diocletian built a big palace out here, and that's kind of makes up the heart of the town. And the palace is super iconic. I'll show you a picture. This is kind of like the big symbol of Split is this bell tower. And yeah, so that's it. It's all really well preserved. This is a picture of what it used to look like on the waterfront. And it went through a time when like it was total after the Roman Empire collapsed, it was like totally abandoned, and then Slavic people just sort of came in and started living inside of it and living inside the ruins, and it kind of got developed. So they'll do these Roman reenactments in the plaza here. But I'd say like a day in Split is you should definitely build that into the itinerary, and maybe even two. We can talk about that. Like a day just exploring the old town is kind of fun, and then maybe another day or an afternoon walking around. This is called Marion Hill, and there's all kinds of like walking trails and little hidden beaches over on this side. Little like places you can stop and get some food or refreshment. You can hike up to the top, and then you get from the top here. You get a really cool view looking down into the city, and so that's definitely worth exploring here. So let's just say like, yeah, broad strokes, like a day, have your arrival day and then just have that afternoon to chill and sort of settle in. It's kind of expensive to be in the old town, and then parking is going to be an issue. Parking is always an issue. So just like factor in some patience for that if you do want to be based like in these old towns, and figure like you might park and end up having to walk 30 minutes through these little alleyways with your luggage to get up to your cute little apartment if you want to be inside the town. So that's definitely like a real reality of the situation to consider when you're thinking if you want to be inside or outside of the old town. If you have a car, like I'd almost recommend like getting a cool spot on the outskirts and then just driving in and sort of being a little bit more mobile that way. There's all kinds of apartments you're going to find between the airport and town. But yeah, I mean, another good thing to know about Split is this is the ferry terminal. You can see all these lines. Like this is the main hub for all the ferry traffic that goes out to the islands. And one super important thing to understand about the ferry system, it's a national system called Yadrolinea, and everything has to go back through Split. So let's say you wanted to do like, logically, it would seem like the easiest thing to do would just be the island hop and go Split to Brač, Brač to Var, Var to Korčula. But you just can't. Everything has to go, like if you go out here to Brač, then you've got to go back to Split, transfer onto another ferry, and that wait time could be like a number of hours before the next one comes. And it's going to be super crowded and all kinds of cars and chaos and traffic. It's not a really well organized system. So it's like, I'm going to try to advise you to avoid in and outs through Split. I'll show you some like little secret workarounds, but this is, for us with our big vans and trailers, and we're coming in here like many times a week. It's kind of exciting for the first time, but I don't know. This for me is like a very high stress area. And it's not really well marked with which ferries are going to be where. And, it's just kind of the chaos that you run into in this part of the world. But yeah, just keep that in mind. Like if you're in far, and then you're like, oh, let's go to Korčula, and you have a car, there's a passenger ferry that will take you island to island, called the Krilo Jet catamaran, which maybe we can talk about that for like day trips out. But I think if you have a car, just count on the fact that like you got to get it on the big car ferry and then go back. That's also important when you're booking these ferry tickets. Make sure you're on the car ferry and not the Krilo Jet catamaran passenger ferry, because they're two very different things. So yeah, so as you're walking around the old town, you can't help but kind of get sucked into this, or at least like looking at it and seeing all the boats, and it's exciting. It's kind of cool, that port area. But yeah, when you're in Split, that's what I'd focus on. Like, yeah, downtown there, Marion Hill Park, and then if you want to venture out, up here you can see by the topo information here, like this city just backs up against this big mountain range. And so as you go out of town this way, there's a old fortress here in Cleese that they did some filming for Game of Thrones. And yeah, you can see, you get this nice view of Split down there. And there's a cool museum that talks about how the people of Croatia fought against the Hungarians and all these Arab pirates who would come in and raid the coast, and so they needed to like really fortify this area. But that's another thing to consider, just as like a little day trip. Get up to Cleese and see that. I wouldn't put it super high on the list of things to do, but you will see a lot of advertisements for like getting up here and seeing Cleese. So yeah, and then this whole coastline is very pretty as you get down here through Omiš. So here's what I'd suggest. Like, okay, fly in, have a day to just, or, have a chill day, just to get your feet back underneath you. Don't put too much pressure on doing anything crazy. And then maybe, let's say, like a day exploring Old Town, a day of maybe like yeah, you could do this in a morning or an afternoon to go see this park. So you wouldn't need like a whole day for that, but maybe like yeah, just like some time in Split to kind of get your bearings and explore. And then what I think would be cool is if you came down the coast, you start planning to go south. Let me pause on Brach real fast. Like, Brach is very undeveloped, and there's some cool things. Like, we would always take people to this village of Pučišća, and it's very scenic. Yeah, like just classic Croatian harbor here with the church and different bell towers and stuff. But I would almost put Brach as like a pass. There's that. Bol is famous down here for this Zlatni Rat, the Golden Cape, and it's like one of the only sandy beaches in this part of the world. You'll see this on billboards and advertisements all over the place, but I mean, it's just like a sandbar basically that comes out in this town called Bol, which is famous for its kite surfing, just because of the way the winds come through that channel. You see a lot of like kite surfers, and it's kind of a cool vibe. But other than that, Brach doesn't have a lot going on, in my opinion. So I think in the interest of time, you're better off just sort of like skipping this, because there's cooler things to do. So after you see Split, you come down the coast here, and these are all cute little villages, and then maybe you pause in Omiš. And we used to cycle right through this gorge here. Omiš, it always reminded me of Yosemite Valley as you come in here. It's really dramatic, karst limestone rock features. And let's see the best picture. That's a pretty good one. And you can see how like there's a valley back behind here, and the Cetina River cuts through and comes out through this little gap in the rock, and then flows out to the sea. And it's never super busy. It's like a little quieter spot. You can do like really awesome via ferrata and climb up these rocks. and go to the fortress. I know I still haven't done it, but a lot of the people on the Croatia team love doing it. You know, they give you the helmet, and you can climb on this rock. It's all like guided and really well set up. There's like zip lining you can do through the valley, and then we would always take people on this rafting, and it was built into the family trip, and I kind of like, I was a little hypercritical against it, like, oh, it's gonna be kind of lame, you know, to take them rafting. But this actually ends up being so fun, and if you're visiting during like the heat of the summer, or if it's like, yeah, hot, like this river is so refreshing, and you can get involved in different with different organizations, rafting, Omish. Like you come up here, and they'll, yeah, put you in a raft and let you do some rock jumping and stuff as you come down here into the Cetina. And this is kind of becoming like a little adventure zone. So like I said, they got the rafting, they've got zip lines, Via Ferrata. I love Omish, and it doesn't get talked about a lot. It's in my opinion, like still one of those little hidden gems. So you can do some Googling on like Cetina River. Yeah, this river valley is beautiful, and yeah, all the rocks and features around Omish are kind of cool. So then I would like, maybe after a night, yeah, like a day to do one of those activities, and then spend the night in Omish, and maybe in the morning come work your way further down the coast this way. And in this town here, Makarska, it's one of the bigger towns on the Dalmatian coast, but it backs up against this national park called Biokovo, and this is a good picture of it. This peak up here is called Sveti Uri, and it's the highest, one of the I think the highest peak on the Dalmatian coast, almost for sure. But Makarska isn't that great of a city in my opinion, but you have access to this Biokovo National Park and Sveti Uri, so you can drive up here, and it is like an insane drive. We used to bike it, but it's a one-way street that just zigzags all the way up the mountain, and you can get to this, like, can't remember what they call it. It's like a sky bridge or something, where this is all glass, and you look down, and you're so high above everything. It's a great view. Yeah, it's like a radio tower, all these like cool old stone, sort of like refugios. But you can get an idea of the road that goes up. So you'd have to be very confident with the driving skills and like have a lot of patience. But if you go early in the morning, there won't be too many people there. But if you're looking for an adventure, like something pretty exciting to do, and like just probably one of my favorite views of the whole, in all of Croatia, because you're looking out at all the islands. Especially if you do it early, you'll be able to look at those islands and then actually go visit them later, and that's kind of cool. But it's definitely not for the faint hearted to get up there. It's not just like an easy stroll, but Makarska is kind of the gateway to get up there. Here you can see the summit, Sveti Uri, and I'll try to pin some of these things too for you on the map just to make it easier to see. But once you're down here, yeah, and even if you like, this whole park, Biokovo, has a ton of different hiking trails and stuff like that. So if you don't want to take the crazy road up to the top, you can take sort of chiller roads and just do like a nice day hike up through the national park. Just for reference, like where all the back roads people live is this little town called Zadvarje, which is in this area. Where are we? Yeah, we live in this little town. It's kind of in this area here, right on the Cetina River. Yeah, this little community here. So you probably see a lot of backroads vans if you're in this area. Okay, yeah, so that's Makarska. And then, so when we actually now start talking about the islands, like I think Brač is kind of a skip. it's beautiful, but there's just not a whole lot going on that's very exciting. So whatever all the tourists are going to do is like come in through Split, want to take the mega ferries out to Starigrad, which is the main port here in Far. But what not a lot of people know is there's this little sneaky, like small ferry that goes from Dervenik to Sucharai, and it's much less crowded. Um, and it's just it's a short one. You can just scoot across. I think it only takes like, I don't know, 30 minutes or something, and you're in Sucharai. The negative is that you're way far away from all the development on Far, but I just love this road. This road is again, like almost all roads in Croatia, they're really skinny, and you have like fast moving two-way traffic on a lot of them, so just be like extra cautious because Croatians drive pretty fast and you're on these little roads. But this scenery out here is like some of my favorite, and I would do this drive a lot. The drive out to Sucharai. But it's really, if you're just in the mood for exploring, you can come. You're on the peak of this ridge line that makes up like the tail end of this skinny island, and there's a couple villages you can stop at and see. People be selling like honey and different fruit products, and what they drink out there is called rakia. It's like their version of like ouzo or grappa, and they'll be selling it on the side of the road. But I just think the views here are so cool. You're looking back at the Sveti Yuri and all these like beautiful Dinaric Alps on the coast, and then out to the sea. And I don't know, I just love doing that drive. I think you might like that, but not. This is very. Nobody really comes out to this side of the island past Yelsa. It just gets very remote really quickly out here. But yeah, that's one thing to consider. You can take that short ferry, skip all the craziness of like coming in through Starigrad, do this beautiful drive. And then as you get out here, like what everyone talks about in Far is Far town. So this is sort of like the party, nightlife, super yacht, like ritzy, pretty much as ritzy as it gets in Croatia, outside of Dubrovnik. But yeah, like big party scene here, beach clubs. They do this thing where it's like, there's this club here called Carpe Diem, and the city makes them shut down the music at like 2 a.m. So then they'll actually run you on a boat out here to one of these islands. These are called the Pakleni Islands, and then just let you like keep on partying all night long because there's no jurisdiction out here. It's Carpe Diem Beach Club. You can see that. So yeah, Far's worth seeing. Again, like we talked about in Split, if you want to stay in the town, just be ready to like park in some parking lot out here on the outskirts and having to walk in because they don't have to give you car access to a lot of these places. So you can kind of consider being outside of it. Where our backroads guests would stay would be this place called Amphora, or there's a place here called Adriana that are like pretty premier. But then the leaders would come up to another hotel called Faros, which is a little bit more like chill, younger people, not so posh, and just like a little bit out of town. So if you're looking at like a proper hotel stay, Faros is kind of cool. But otherwise, you could probably find like little Airbnbs or something in town. Var, like a lot of these towns, has a fortress, and it just makes for a nice walk. You can kind of take a stroll. There was a shot that was taken right here that was like the Backroads catalog cover shot, and it always sort of like recirculates through the catalog. But that's the view from the fort looking down at Far town, which is pretty compact, like compact little place here. But the walk up to the fortress is definitely worth doing, just for the view. And yeah, you can find all kinds of great restaurants here. Great restaurants. You can, if you want to do some kayaking, like one of our activities was we would partner with one of these kayak companies, and they'll take you out to these little Pakleni Islands and paddle around. And like, there's a really famous restaurant out here called in Pomizana Beach, which is sort of like a thing to do, to go out to. What's the name of that place? I always forget. I'll try to dig it up, but it's like this is all like dense pine forest and Just feels like still pretty wild and natural out there. But what we would do for like scenery is we would bike from far and come. There's a tunnel now. They tunneled through this mountain. You can see right here that cuts through, but this is the old road, and it's really scenic and nice, and it takes you up to this is kind of sort of the peak of the ridgeline, Brucia, and Afar was famous for its lavender. So depending on the time of the year, this could all be like lavender in bloom, and it smells really nice, and it's pretty. It's just pretty scenery. You're up at the top of sort of like the highest point of the island, looking back over to Bol and Brach, and this is a big mountain called Vidova Gora, so you get a view of that. And one thing, like if you guys want a good hike, this is Velo Grablier and Malo Grablier. That means just like upper and lower village of Grablier, and you can hike between the two. This one still has people living in it, but Malo Grablier is like totally abandoned, and you can just sort of like cruise around the ruins of this, and hike around and end up in Milna. And in Milna, there's this incredible restaurant that I would really suggest you go check out. And you can tell them that you know Backroads and you know me. It's run by Mate and Michaela Tudor, and so it's called Canoba Lambic. And to go there for a dinner is like a pretty fun experience, or even a lunch or something. It's like tucked into the olive groves here, and it's always like the guests just say that's like one of the best experiences of the whole trip. Dinner in Milna there. But yeah, you have all these like little abandoned villages here, and then we would bike down through Starigrad. So Starigrad is like the biggest village on the island. That means old town, Starigrad, and that's where all the ferry traffic's going to be coming in. It's pretty, but it's a little bit, I don't know, it's not that charming. This is all UNESCO protected lands called the Fields of Starigrad. So UNESCO has like protected the vines and the stone walls, and this is where a lot of the wine production takes place. And this is cool just to drive around and see that they've terraced, like when the Greeks were here, they terraced, they like, it's all very rocky, so they would like try to get to arable farmland, and to be digging in the land, and every time they picked up a rock, they would stack it on a wall. And so it's absolutely like mind-blowing, to see what they've done. Yeah, what they've done with these rock terraces on the landscape, all over the island. And yeah, so you'll see that the Greeks settled here originally because it was like the easiest place to farm and sort of develop. And then as you get to this part of the island, like Yelsa over here is a cute town, and they have their own little harbor, and you can take some time to stroll around there. We'd always go to there's a gelato place right off here, like sort of in the heart of town. This Albanian guys started this gelato place like years ago, and we'd go and kind of their signature thing is like 2 shots of espresso over vanilla ice cream, and it's called a affogato, and just like a lot of fun times in this little corner, eating ice cream and just enjoying the view. Like again, this view, you're looking back at Brach and these mountains of Makarska, and it's really like there's all kinds of like pine forest around, and it's really cool. All right, so we'll throw out one more fun thing to do on Far that I love to do is like go out here to Ivan Dolac, and if you're sort of in this corner of the island, you take a tunnel. This is another tunnel through this big mountain, and it's really spectacular because you pop out here and you can kind of see by the lay of the land on this topo map, it's a sheer mountain that rises right out of the sea, and they've terraced these hillsides to grow grapes. And I know you're not planning on doing like a ton of drinking, but there's a very famous wine on the island. Well, all through Croatia, you're going to see this on all the menus, just Zlatan Plavac, and that little symbol is this island with a tree on it. And if you're out here in Ivan Dolac, you can actually go out and see that tree. They built a little bridge out to it, and it's just all around like a pretty scenic little spot. Let's see if we can pull up a picture here. Yeah, this is just like a really cool, iconic spot, and it's totally hidden, because there's no other way to access this part of the island unless you go through that tunnel. They're actually building a road now. Yeah, even though it's in Sveti Nedelya. Sveti Nedelya is probably like the more well-known town here. They're actually building a road that will connect these little parts of the island, and you'll probably see it under construction. It's all dirt, and it's this road here. So you can drive it, and that's another cool adventure if you want to drive this. I don't think they've paved it yet. It'll all be dirt, but if your car is up for it, you could either drive in that way or come through the tunnel. But I just love this. This is such a dramatic part of the coastline. And there's another cool thing out here called, it's like climbing base. It was like this Polish guy that came out here, cliff base, and he made a little hostel, like a rock climbing hostel out here. Whoops. So cool how he just built this hostel right into the side of the cliff, and he like makes his own wine, and he'll take you down into his cellar, like inside one of these caves. And you can see it's like really cool rock climbing, just this sheer face, and he's got his little operation here. And I don't know if you kind of wander over to that area, it's worth seeing. So that's kind of like what I'd say about Far. If we're kind of thinking like where to base, if you want party and nightlife and like excitement, then Fartown is where you should go. But you could also end up staying over here in Jelsa. You might find a nice little apartment and a little bit quieter here. Starograd, you might see some options there. And or if you're really feeling adventurous, like you could base yourself here in Sveti Nedelya and find a little place that's sort of like perched on the cliff, looking out at the water. You find some good stuff over here too. But it's not too far to drive, and everywhere you drive is going to be pretty and scenic. So just kind of see what's available there and decide where you want to be. Okay, so then what you could do is take a ferry back, from Starograd, put the car on the car ferry, go back to Split, transfer, and then go down to Korčula Island and see Korčula. But I think like if you guys want a really more unique experience and you have the time, like with 14 days, I think you could totally pull this off. Is like come do this beautiful drive back out to Sucharai, catch the Sucharai to Drvenik ferry, and then cross the border into Bosnia and come up here to Mostar. And Mostar's famous for this bridge. And this was built by the Ottomans in the 1400s, and then actually during the Homeland War, the Croatians, because they wanted to take over Bosnia and they were trying to kick all the Muslims out, they actually blew this bridge up, and it was like this horrific, basically like a crime against humanity. And there was a lot of bloodshed and violence. After Croatia declared independence, the second phase of that war was to see like who was going to take over Bosnia and Herzegovina. And I mean, you can get deep. I'll talk you through the history. The history is so interesting how like the Ottoman Empire expanded and actually controlled a lot of this Adriatic coastline for a long time. And so like as it all shook out, like this is still very Muslim. And so you can see the minarets. They do the call to prayer, and it's just like going into a different world. You get so used to this, like in Croatia, it's all like Roman Catholic, and you see their churches everywhere, and then you just cross over this border. Like, let's see what the drive is. Like, if you were in, it's a cool drive, and it could be a really fun thing just to understand like all the different cultures that mix in this area. So let's say you're here, and then you followed the river up to Mostar. See, yeah, 2 hours. It's a pretty easy drive to go in there, and maybe do a night or two in Mostar, and everything's going to be so much cheaper because Bosnia is super affordable, and to get a little, just a whole different taste of the Balkans there in Mostar. And there's like big markets that take place and amazing restaurants. You just have the best meals for like 5 or 10 euros, and it's cool. I think it's really cool to understand. Oh, and there will be guys that are in like little speedos, and they make money by jumping off the bridge. So they'll just hang out on the bridge and like collect coins until they have enough money, and then the guy will jump off the bridge into the water. And like Red Bull comes here and does a big dive competition every year. Like, they'll build an even higher platform off this bridge and jump into the water from there. And yeah, it'd be cool. You learn a little bit about Bosnia and Herzegovina, and see, there's a picture of them, like, yeah, swan diving off. So that's definitely something to think about. Not that would be like a really cool, unique thing that not a lot of people do if they're just in this area. So think about that. Yeah, a night in Mostar, and then you drive on back down, and so you'd come ashore here in Dervnik, drive up to Mostar for a night, and then come back down and catch this ferry from Ploče. And from there, you can kind of get back into the island scene. This is actually a peninsula called the Pelishats. It's connected by this tiny strip of land here, but you would just sort of like do a little hop across and go Ploče to Turpan, then drive, I don't know, 30 minutes to Orebic, and then you can cross from Orebic to Korčula, and you can have your time exploring Korčula. And like you said in that document, this is where Marco Polo was born, and Korčula is like absolutely one of the most photogenic towns in Croatia. You'll see they call it like the mini Dubrovnik. And it just sits out on this little peninsula. It's super compact. And they talk about like it's one of the earliest examples of like urban design, where they actually design the street layout to take advantage of like cool winds that blow in from the north off the Alps. All those roads, all those like streets are straight, so the wind blows down. And then there's also a hot wind that comes in from the south, and all those streets are curved, so it would like block that effect of the hot wind. And there's just like very nice restaurants. The church is super cool. You can actually you can walk up out of town to this viewpoint and just admire that. And like, Korčula is a cool thing to see for sure. You'd want to build that into your itinerary. You can get a little bit more off the beaten path as you drive this way, but I don't know. It's not, unless you're on a bike, just to drive this, I don't know. Maybe you could just drive it just to drive it. And this is the main road that goes across the spine of the island, but you can drop down here to like Brna. This is all vacation houses and like really quiet neighborhoods that are right by the coast, in some more like traditional kanobas, and kanoba's their word for like a cafe. Blato, there's not a lot going on. And then this is sort of the major town, Vela Luka. That means the big harbor, and that's where the split ferry is going to come in. But yeah, I mean, again, if you wanted to do kayaking, there's like some kayak outfitters here that we know that you can paddle around these little coves, and they'll take you for some cliff jumping and that sort of thing. But that's, Vela Luka. I don't know if we'll see how the days actually shake out, but if you're coming to Korčula, like the big thing is just to see Korčula town, And then you can get out here to Lombarda. There's a type of grape that grows here called Gurk, Grk, and there's nowhere else in the world that it grows. It's a white wine, and so they're really proud of that out here in Lombarda. But yeah, that's Korčula. This ferry runs all the time, Korčula Overview, so you can that's an easy one to plan out as you're making your exit. Let me think about this. Yeah, Recice is a cool town that you can do like a little day trip out to. Though all these islands are full of these little places, these little hidden villages that you could just go get a coffee, walk around, go to the church. They're all pretty much the same. But yeah, you see a lot of this like perfectly clear water, and yeah, I mean, that's one of my favorite things. Just like go find a little cafe, have a coffee, sit and chill, like watch the fishermen come in and out, and just, it's a good shot of Recice. Yeah, so, all right, let me think. Yeah, that's pretty much Korčula. This is another, so Pelichat's Peninsula is one of my favorite spots. Like I said, it's just connected by this tiny land bridge down here in stone, but you feel like you're on an island. And just like everywhere in Croatia, this is famous for wine. This is actually probably the most famous wine region in Dalmatia. It's called Postup, this Postup region here. And basically what's going on is like, sort of like on Far, they've terraced these hillsides that are kind of like south facing, and they grow a grape called the Plavac Mali, which is like their version of Zinfandel. I mean, yeah, again, like, it doesn't matter if you're not drinking, but just to go see the wine country here is really cool and learn about that. And they used to use donkeys to like help them harvest and haul all the grapes up and over this big ridgeline and down into the valley for production. So like everything has sort of like donkey theme, and just like really dramatic scenery here. So I have a good friend who lives in this village here called Duba, and man, if she's around, I would love for you guys to hang out. She can kind of like tell you the history of this village, and the story of her family is super fascinating. Her name's Alina, so we'll see if we can make that happen. That could be cool for just like a real authentic cultural connection. There's a big hike up here to Sveti Ilya that's a little bit sketchy, like especially in the summertime. It's all exposed, this like white limestone. And there's like vipers and stuff up here. But depending on how adventurous you guys want to be, there's hikes up in that area. And this town of Kučiće is another big windsurfing and kite surfing spot, because you can see how the wind just gets sort of like pinched through this gap. So there's a lot of like windy days out there. But yeah, I mean, I'll say it again for the 100th time. Like, if you're thinking about staying in Split, think about staying in Far town or Korčula town, just be ready for like, go light and be ready to park on the outskirts, and be able to deal with like the little windy roads and like lots of stairs as you're coming in and out of the town. So it might be easier and more enjoyable to stay outside, or even if you stay in Beach or around here, what's cool is you get the view of Korčula town looking across from the water, which is really nice. And then you could just do like a little day trip over and see the town, and maybe drive out here to like, there's a bunch of like secret hidden beaches over here. That could be fun to like spend a day and see that. So, or beach, yeah. And now as you're going south, like what you have to do, don't go on the main road here, but from Potomi, this is all wine country and different wineries and production facilities. There's another tunnel you can come through this tunnel, the Dingač tunnel, and this is one of my favorite roads in the whole world. You get on the other side of this mountain range, and we would bike this, but it's a long downhill, that nobody uses except for the farmers. And it drops you down here into Trstenik. Trstenik's famous for the Grgic winery. And so Mike Grgic was this little Croatian guy, this guy. And when the wine harvest failed in Croatia, he moved to Napa, and he worked for this winery called Chateau Montelena. And he basically, like in the 70s, I think it was like 76, they did a blind tasting of his Chardonnay against like the best Chardonnays of France, and even the French judges thought that his Chardonnay was better than anything else that they had grown. So it was this huge thing. There's a movie about it, I think, called uh, let's see, Bottle Shock. Yeah, and it's got Alan Rickman. I know you love Alan Rickman, Rose, from Quigley Down Under. So I think that's the movie. Yeah, that's the movie. So he plays like the guy, the wine merchant that organized the tasting. But anyways, it's just a little fun piece of history there. He later moved back. Mike Grgic moved back. This is like near where he grew up, and he started a winery here called Grgic Winery, which sits out on this little peninsula. It's really beautiful. And anyways, this is a cool town, Trstenik. And then as you go further down this road, you end up in Juliana. And this town I love. It's tiny, but there's like a really cool Canova we eat at out here, and it's just like real authentic sort of vibes down here. And then from Juliana, you connect back to the main highway, and you're kind of, you through that beautiful part of the coast. But let me pull up a picture of Juliana. Yeah, I always thought, man, if I could buy some property and have a little house, like it would be somewhere in this on the Pelishats, uh, close to these little villages. We really love for you guys to see that. It's pretty cool. Okay, so now you work down this way, and this is huge news. This Pelishats Bridge. I'll tell you a little bit about what's going on here. They just opened this up in 2022, I think, like over around 4th of July. So before this bridge was put in, they've been talking about building this bridge for like hundreds of years. And because what's happening is like you can see these black lines. This is like a 10-kilometer stretch of Bosnia that actually peaks out through Croatia, and it cuts off this whole southern Dalmatian coastline. Like that is cut off from the rest of mainland Croatia because of this corridor. And so what happened was the people of Dubrovnik, like Dubrovnik was its own independent republic for a long, long time, and they were always worried about invasion. People come marching down here and invading their land. And so at that time, Bosnia was controlled by the Ottoman Empire. And so Dubrovnik worked out a deal with the Ottoman in Istanbul, the Ottoman Empire, or the emperor, to like give them this strip of land so that if anyone came down and invaded, they would go through Ottoman territory, and then that would spark a war with the Ottomans. And so it's this crazy legacy, weird border thing that still exists like all of these years later. But it makes it a huge pain in the ass for anyone who's like, if you're going south, before this bridge was built, you'd stamp out of Croatia into Bosnia, you'd come through Neum, and then you have to go out of Bosnia into Croatia. And so it creates these ridiculously long lines of people, and you have to like declare everything you're bringing in. Like everyone's got stories about like them confiscating cheese or like local produce or like any kind of goods. When we were bringing the bikes through here, we had to have we call it a carnet, which states like the value of each bike, and they make sure that like the same amount of bikes come in as go out, because they didn't want you like coming in here and selling bikes or like doing weird stuff like that. So anyways, so they finally opened this bridge, and it's beautiful, and like the Croatian people are just so proud of this bridge because now you can jump from the mainland out to the Pelishats, which again is a peninsula, work your way around the Neum quarter, and then pop out again. So it's like reconnected this whole part of the coastline after years and years. So you wouldn't, with this trajectory, you wouldn't cross it, but you will see it. And you might even just like come down here to Brieste just to see it because it's such a big part of the culture now. But anyways, like, yeah, I would recommend like doing Tristan Juliana, popping up here, maybe a little detour over to Briesta. But if not, like, you'll see it. You'll see it from different parts of this route. And then you come down here to Stone. And Stone is like pretty remarkable. So it's this incredible wall that they built up and over this ridgeline. Because again, they were so worried about attack coming that they fortified this whole pinch point so that if anyone was marching down, they'd have to come through Stone. And so there's a fort here, and they do like a big running race up and down those stairs. So Stone is like a pretty unique thing. And then they had these salt flats. So like salt used to be such a huge moneymaker for these guys. So they would like flood this little plain, harvest the salt, and they get like, this was all controlled by the people of Dubrovnik, which in those days it was called Ragusa. And that's one of the reasons they were so wealthy and so powerful. It's because of the salt production here that they could like put on donkey trains and take up to Mostar and then take into the interior where they didn't have so much salt. So Stone is a great place to stop. There's all kinds of like really nice seafood here, oysters and shellfish that this bay here is like super famous throughout all of Croatia for the shellfish production. So you can check that out and as you pass on that way. And then, yeah, so now you're kind of like back on the mainland proper and you're making your way down to Dubrovnik. This is like a lot of fast moving traffic or sometimes very slow moving traffic. It's just a little 2-lane highway that everybody goes up and down along the coast. So like buses and big trucks and stuff like that. So just be ready for that. And if you're looking for a stop as you go down, this is amazing. So there's a little village called Tristano. And the only reason I ever stopped here is because they have these 2 plane trees. They're huge. They're like bigger than you can even imagine. And there's 2 of them. And they're like these enormous twin trees. And they actually win awards. Like they do these European tree contests, and I think one year they won like the most spectacular trees. Anyways, there's just 2 of them there that they grow because there's a spring in the mountain that drips out here or flows down here to the harbor. And so anyways, I would drive this week in, week out, and one day I was like, I want to stop and look at these trees. And then it turns out the trees are part of like a bigger arboretum or arboretum or whatever. And so this was like a Croatian sea captain that sailed around the world, like a dozen times, and every time he'd bring back different tree species and plant them here. And it's super cool. Like I would definitely recommend making a stop here at the arboretum, and you can see the villa where the guy lived and just sort of like stroll around. And nobody does this. Everyone's just always in such a hurry to get between Split and Dubrovnik. So many people pass over this and don't see it, but you drive down. This is like a really steep hill. And then I was like, oh, I want to go down and see the water. So you drive down further down this way, and you come across this like crazy little bridge, and you end up here, which is an abandoned villa. Gosh, it's like so unknown. I don't even know if I can pull up. I think some hotel chain has bought it and they're trying to renovate it, but it is, yeah, here it is. It's this crazy abandoned palace that was like I think it was like a official of Bosnia, back when it was all Yugoslavia and it was all one country. Like Bosnian people could own land in Croatia, Croatians could own land in Slovenia, Slovenians could own land in Montenegro, whatever. So, but after the war, that all changed, and so they didn't know, like a Bosnian family owned this, and no Croatian person could take the rights and control it, so it just totally fell apart. But if I could show you pictures of the harbor here. Let me see if I can Google that. It's just so incredible. Yeah, that's a good picture of it. So there's like a little parking lot down here, and only very few people know that this even exists down here. And there's like an outdoor shower. We would spend time just like jumping off this pier into like super deep water. And it's like, if you, yeah, on a hot day, like stop here, go for a swim, go explore the ruins of that old palace. And I think there's even like an Airbnb. They turned one of these into an Airbnb, and I just think that would be the coolest thing to stay there on your way down, and just chill. Like, this is such a cool chill spot. But yeah, so we'll talk about that later if you want to know more about that. But it's right on the way down south to Dubrovnik. So yeah, you just follow this road down, and then you end up in Dubrovnik. And I mean, I could do like an hour-long video just on Dubrovnik. Yeah, I'm interested to see where you guys end up staying, because again, like all these towns, if you want to be in the old town, which, like, yes, it's a cool experience, there's just so much hassle that goes along with that you got to plan around. But there are all kinds of Airbnbs and stuff over here outside of Dubrovnik where you can. It's not easy to walk anywhere around here because this is also steep, and they don't really have developed sidewalks. There's just like the busy main road, and then there's smaller roads and stuff like that. But Dubrovnik, like, you should definitely. I'll try to connect you with this tour guide named Ivan, who does like incredible tours and will teach you so much about the history. You can walk up to this Fort Lovrenac, and like get a great view of the city. You can go walk the walls. I think it's like 2 kilometers. You can walk all the way around the walls. Yeah, just so many churches and cool places to eat. And there's like a couple dance clubs if you guys want to go party. There's a place called Reveline, and that's like the big party scene. And I'll try to give you a guide to Dubrovnik, but like, I don't know, 2 days in Dubrovnik could be cool. You can walk up this trail to there's a museum of the Homeland War up here, and Mount Surd. I'll show you the view from up there. You gotta go see that view. Yeah, it's just that iconic view, like looking down at the town, and you can the museum up there is actually really fascinating if you want to learn about the fall, the collapse of Yugoslavia, and how the people of Dubrovnik were invaded from the south by the Serbian and Montenegrin army. They just marched up through here, burnt all these houses on the way up, and then like started shelling Dubrovnik from the top of the ridgeline. And this was all UNESCO protected. It was this huge like international, just like big time situation during the Homeland War. And anyways, Dubrovnik for sure, like a couple days there at least to see that. There was a long time where Backroads was based down here in Mochici next to the airport. And so if you want to go meet like the Brodovich family who we used to stay with, like maybe they could host you for a meal. Or yeah, just depending on how entrenched with the locals you want to get, like you could definitely swing by there and just hang out with them. And they're super cool people to know. And they run this little agroturismo, Brodovich. They're super busy. They get booked up pretty fast with what they do. But yeah, they're amazing chefs, and they'll cook you, this fish. They have a little boat and they catch it themselves and cook it all up. So it's like Mate and Juliana are the mom and dad, and then they live with Nike and Tonche, who are like Mato's parents. And so it's like many generations in this house. And but yeah, it's a little bit outside of town. But these are cute towns, and the Mochici has this little beach that the community put together. They all just like brought down sand, like bags of concrete, and built like a little hangout zone, and you can do amazing cliff jumping down there along the cliffs. There's actually like this beach too is so cool. I can't remember the name of this one, but you come through like a tunnel in the rock, and you pop out, and you're like on this little strip of sand. Again, it's like very sort of like locals only. You got to know about it to go find it. But yeah, you could consider spending some time down here in the south, maybe like being based out of Savtat, which is, I saw that on your list. Like, would definitely recommend. Like, it's a beautiful, cool little town, and then you could have access to like this sort of like hidden locals only stretch of coastline down here, and just maybe make a day trip into Dubrovnik and see that, walk around town for a bit, and then come back to sort of like the peace and the quiet down here in the countryside. Could be cool, but it just depends on the vibe. Like, maybe you do want to be right in the middle of everything in these really cool historic apartments. You know, you could do either one. Either one would be great. And then, you know, if we still have days to play with on the itinerary, you can consider taking that car down south. So you cross the border, you leave Croatia, and you actually go into Montenegro. And you can go through the big main border, which is very busy, or you could go through the secret border, which we go through, which is down here. And that's much cooler experience, I think, to come down here. If you want to do some exploring, there's this old fortress, another abandoned fortress you can check out here in Prevlaka. And again, it's just like ruins where you can park and you just explore around here, and it's set up on this cliffside. Super dramatic, but like nobody goes out here. It's just like a lot more authentic and cool to see this sort of thing out here in Prevlaka. But anyways, yeah, you can cross over and actually like end up in here in Kotor, and this is like, you know, they call it like the fjords of the Balkans. And look, it was just so dramatic. There's a guide I can hook you up with that'll put you on kayaks or stand-up paddleboards, and you can actually paddle out to this church. This is called Our Lady of the Rock. So it's a story about like, it sits out here on the lake. So a fisherman found a painting of like the Virgin Mary floating there, and he took it back to the town. And the next day it was like floating in the same spot, and they took it as a sign that they should build a church there. So they just started like sinking boats and dropping rocks and stacking up stuff until they made this man-made island and built this church on top of it. And this is a monastery that floats out here too. But yeah, if you want to connect with Boyan, he has a little operation where he'll like give you a kayak, or there's boats you can take too, but it's kind of cool to like kayak out there, see the church, and then paddle back. And then there's like amazing hikes, so many hikes you can do. But one we would take people on is this one. This is called Vermont's Ridge. And it's not easy, but you'd come in from the town of Kotor and go up. This, I think that's it, that crazy switchback there. And anyways, you can get really cool views. So like, yeah, great hiking, kayaking. The town of Kotor itself is kind of a shithole, to be honest. It's just so crowded. They get these huge cruise ships in, and it's just like chaotic. But I don't know, it's there. But really, you just go for sort of the natural scenery of the place, and just to say that you went to Montenegro and, you know, you got exposed to that Montenegrin culture. But yeah, you can Google this spot and see if it might catch your interest, or if you want to maybe focus more on just sort of going deeper into Croatia, you can do that. So anyways, all right, that's about an hour. Let me recap real quick and just say, like, couple nights in Split, you do well with that. I'd say skip Brač, come down here to Omiš and Makarska, build in some time. Like if you want to do cool, fun outdoorsy things, the rafting on the Cetina is fun. I never did zip lining, but people tell me that's fun. The Via Ferrata, everyone tells me that's super fun. And Omish is just kind of a cool town. Makarska for going up to Sveti Yuri. If you wanted to hike around Biokovo and sort of do that sort of thing, you can do that from Makarska, or just go up here to Sveti Yuri just for the adventure of it and the views. Come down here and take the little sneaky back door, Dervenik to Sucharai ferry. Come in, CFR if you want like posh party scene, yachts and that sort of thing, or keep it chill and like stay in Yelsa, or keep it super, super chill and come out here to like Sveti Nedelya or Ivan Dolats and just enjoy the sort of seclusion over there. And then you can venture out and do your little day trips out to the more crowded spots if you want. And then think about coming back onto the mainland, hitting Mostar, see Bosnia. And then when you're done with that, come back here, catch the ferry from Ploče over to the Pelishats, see Korčula town, and do like, I don't know, 1 or 2 nights in Korčula. Maybe if my friend's around, like come over here and see Duba, take the old farm road down here through Trstenik and Juliana. Maybe consider having like a chill night in one of these or in Stone. Actually, no, I wouldn't do that. I would just make this a day of seeing these towns, seeing the fortress in Stone, and then making your way south. Maybe think about if that Airbnb is available in Trsteno. That would be such a cool experience. And kind of like get your energy up, because once you hit Dubrovnik, like you're going to be going full out, whether that's like hiking or partying or just like walking around town. I'll give a shout out for this Red History Museum. This is a really cool, well done, very brand new museum about Yugoslavia. And that's a really like interactive stuff and videos and like, I don't know, that's pretty cool. Do a guided tour of Dubrovnik. Like if you're going to do guided tours, like I do a guided tour of Split and I do a guided tour of Dubrovnik, and that gives you so much context into the history and sort of the culture there. So it's super fun. And then come down here, Savtat for sort of like chill, more low-key stuff. Come out here to Mochichi if you want to meet the Bradoviches and explore some really, really secret, sort of like locals-only beach spots. I'll pin them on a map for you. And see this sort of beach town, or you can't really call it a beach. It's like rocky shoreline basically, but really cool swim spots. And then think about if you want to be adventurous and come down here and see Kotor and hike around these ridge lines. I mean, a lot of people will even do a day trip. So if you have a car, like you can go. Let's see what that drive is like. Just to drive around the Bay of Kotor is pretty stunning. What's going on here? Yeah, 2 hours. 2 hours. Yeah, the scenery is really, really cool. You can drive the entire perimeter, or there's like a little pinch point here where you can take a ferry and cut across. But I don't know. I like the drive is really cool around. That church sits right here. This is Our Lady of the Rock. Gospa od Skripelia. And Perast is a cool town. They talk about Catherine Zeta-Jones and Michael Douglas, and also like Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt. This was where they would go for seclusion and peace and quiet, to Perast. And if you end up hooking up or meeting up with Boyan, he'll set you up with like a little paddling excursion from here near this part of the coast and paddle across and see the church. But you could also do a boat trip from Perast. A lot of people, you see a lot of boats zipping back and forth. But even if you didn't want to go into the church, like even just seeing it from the road is like, I always remember that being really cool. And then the village of Kotor, like the town of Kotor, sits tucked in here at the safest place of the harbor. Yeah, okay. So yeah, that's it. You sit with that. You guys can chat with that, and then we'll connect on the phone and see what we can come up with for the rest. So okay, love you guys. We'll talk soon. Bye.